Now, some people say that there are absolutely no bad cabins on a cruise. Now, while generally I agree, there are absolutely some cabins that you'll want to avoid, and I will let you know of a couple that I will never book again. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now I'm telling you, you're going to thank me later for this video because I'm going to save you from some of those bad cabins. Yes, there are some cabins that you might want to avoid. There are some that have noise issues, privacy issues, and you may even have some that might have a bit of a smell of smoke, and you definitely want to avoid those. Now, out of this list of 17 cabins to avoid, a couple of them are genuinely going to surprise you, so make sure that you do watch till the end. But before I get started, I do want to mention two things. Firstly, these are my opinions. So of course, some of these cabins are going to be just fine for you. Let me know if these cabins won't bother you. And at the same time, I'm willing to bet you have a couple of other types of cabins that should have been included in this list. So please let me know that as well in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give the video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'd love to have you here within the Lifewell Cruise community. Let's get started. Number one. Okay, I needed to mention this one to get it out of the way right away. It is inside or interior cabins. Now, don't get upset because I actually like inside cabins. I've booked them before. I will continue to book them. I like balconies as well, but I don't really find them that bad. But I know some people will be absolutely miserable in an inside cabin. So I absolutely needed to include this in the list. If you are somebody who needs natural light, if you will feel claustrophobic, then you will not like having an inside cabin. If that is you, do not book it no matter how much money you save. Number two, any cabins that are directly under the lido or the pool deck. Now, this is especially true of those balcony cabins because what happens is, especially starting off early in the morning, maybe at 5 or 6 a.m., you will have the crew that will be spraying off the pool decks. They'll also be moving around all of those deck chairs. They basically pile them up at night and then they'll unpile them in the morning time and they'll lay them out. They tend to kind of scrape along the pool deck, and you probably don't want that, especially early in the morning. Now, during the day, you may hear music from the lido deck. You'll hear people walking around. Maybe people are going to be walking and jogging. That is just not going to be a very quiet balcony cabin. So if that is important to you, do not book those cabins that are directly under the lido or pool deck. Number three, avoid any of those very forward cabins. Now, if you have a cabin that's at the front of the ship, you are definitely going to feel more motion. So if you are prone to seasickness or motion sickness or have any concerns about that, that is definitely an area that you want to avoid. Number four, we've got to talk about guarantee cabins. Now, I have to say, guarantee cabins are not necessarily bad, but they are bad if you want to know what cabin you're going to get. Basically, the idea of a guarantee cabin is you are booking a cabin in a certain category. You're usually paying a lower price. Sometimes it can be $200 less per person. Sometimes it could be even much more. So that's kind of the benefit. But the disadvantage to it is that you don't know where your cabin is going to be. You do have a potential of getting an upgrade, but it may be anywhere on the ship. So if you are picky with your cruise cabin, don't book those guarantees. Number five. This is personally what I think is the very worst cabin on a cruise ship, and these are obstructed cabins. I know not everybody's going to agree with me on this one, but honestly, we had a balcony cabin. It was on Regal Princess. It was an obstructed balcony, so we absolutely knew it. The price was good. It was better than an inside cabin in the way that at least we could get outside and get that fresh air. But we had a lifeboat that completely blocked our view when we were sitting down. So if we did want to see the ocean, we did have to stand up. Now, in fairness, the person that was right next to us had a little platform, I guess, where somebody might stand, like a crew member might stand, and a little wire. So he had hardly any obstruction. So if you do book an obstructed balcony cabin, just maybe try to do some research and find out how obstructed obstructed that balcony cabin really is. Now, there are also obstructed ocean view cabins. Now, these obstructed ocean view cabins tend to have a lifeboat somewhere in front of their window. And the people that I knew that booked an obstructed ocean view had told me, they said we should have booked an inside cabin because we literally could see nothing outdoors. The entirety of the window was obstructed with an orange lifeboat. I think I would prefer a picture frame on the wall rather than that. If you have booked an obstructed cabin in the past, please let me know about your experience in the comments below and if you would book it again. Number 6, connecting cabins. Now, connecting cabins are almost always universally ones that you should avoid. Unless, of course, you've got your kids or your family that are in a connecting cabin, then you want to be next to them. But otherwise, absolutely do not take any connecting cabins. The reason is you'll have a door in between both of the cabins and it will not be as soundproof as the rest of the wall. So you don't want to hear any of the sounds from next door. Maybe the people have a baby, maybe they put the TV on loud at night, maybe they argue, yell, any sorts of sounds. You just don't want to hear it. Now, just something to mention is you could find out if that cabin is a connecting cabin. You can ask your travel agent, you can ask the cruise line, but you can also look online at the cruise ship deck plan and you will be able to see if there's a little symbol indicating that it is a connecting cabin. Number 7, cabins that are too near or too far from the elevator. Now, generally people don't like to be too close to that elevator area or that stairway area because people do tend to congregate there, especially like right before dinner, maybe when there are excursion days, things like that. So it does tend to get a little bit noisy if you are too close to that elevator area. However, if you're on a very large cruise ship, or maybe if you have some trouble walking or with your knees, then you don't want to be too far from those elevators either. So usually being about 5 or 6 cabins sort of away from the elevators is like that perfect spot. Number 8, any cabins that are close by to the passenger laundry room. Now, not all cruise ships have this, but some cruise ships will have a small laundrette on several passenger decks. If your ship has one, you don't really want to be next door or 2 doors away from this because people do tend to use these maybe early in the morning time and you don't want to be woken up by those early birds. Cabins near the kids club. Now, if you are a parent and you have young children, you may really like being close by to the kids club because you can bring the kids to the kids club in the morning time. You can pick them up at the end of the night and go straight back to the cabin. So it could be super convenient. However, if you don't have young children, you probably don't want to be in those family cabin areas because you are sure to have other families with other young children. And you know what that means. That means a lot of running around. That means maybe some crying, lots of laughing. It could be happy sounds, but you may just not want to hear it if you are not cruising with kids. Number 10, cabins that are over, under any discos, any nightclubs, or any theaters. Now, this goes without saying, but you might have more noise, thumping music, all of that kind of thing. If you are in any of those locations, you'll probably hear some amount of that in your cabin. So it's always a good idea to have a cabin that is sandwiched between 2 passenger decks. In this way, you're not going to have any public decks or any lounges, any eating areas directly above or below you. Number 11, cabins that are near the designated smoking areas. Now, most cruise ships do not allow people to smoke anymore out on their balconies. However, there are a few designated smoking areas on the cruise ship, and depending on how sensitive you are to the smell of smoke, you're going to want to avoid getting any cabins that are nearby those areas. So there's usually a smoking area near the main pool on either the starboard or the port side. So you can find out about that, but you'll want to avoid like those balcony cabins that are directly under that location because sometimes smoke does kind of waft out a little bit. Also, at the aft of the cruise ship, sometimes there is a smoking area there. And oftentimes on the promenade deck, there will be a smoking area on one side or the other of the cruise ship. So find out about that if you are sensitive to smoke. Number 12, cabins that are nearby the casino, especially if you are over, above, or right next to the casino. So first of all, the casino tends to be busy and really run throughout the night. So it'll almost never be completely quiet. And as well, it does tend to be smoky on many cruise ships. So this is a cabin location that you'll want to avoid. Cabins that are directly under the buffet. Now, I have a bit of a funny story, something that happened to us on a past cruise. Now, we were under the buffet, and I have to say, I probably would still book this type of cabin again because otherwise I really didn't hear any noise. It didn't bother me. However, one night, the seas were a little bit rough and there was some rocking and some rolling. And there must have been some sort of cart, some sort of tabaret or tray, whatever you call those kind of rolling carts. It must have not been tied up during the night. So we kept hearing it over our heads, rolling back and forth. Back and forth. It did not stop the entire night. So if you are sensitive to noise, though, even from the foot traffic that might be above, you're probably best off avoiding that cabin location. Number 14, any cabins that are close by to the crew access to the crew stairway or any crew work areas. Now, crew have their own access, so they have their own stairways within the cruise ship. And depending on where you are, you might hear that door open a lot of times, even during the night. So again, if you are sensitive to noise, don't book any cabins in that area. Another thing to watch for are any work areas for the crew or any like storage areas that might be on your passenger deck that might be close by to your cabin. Now, what you can do is you can see on the deck plan, you'll be able to see if there's any like spaces. Sometimes those are crew closets. Usually those are not really disturbing. They just kind of store things there, but sometimes they are actually little work areas and you probably want to avoid those. Number 15, cabins that are close to the ship's anchor. Now, cruise passengers who've stayed in cabins nearby the ship's anchor have said that they hear early in the morning when the cruise ship is arriving in port. Oftentimes they will hear a loud clang. They will hear a lot of maneuvering. They may hear crew out on a platform nearby that area that are talking like on walkie-talkies as they're maneuvering. So this can be disturbing, especially if you're a very light sleeper. And this is going to happen probably very early in the morning, like at 5 or 6 a.m. And you'll hear this noise when you depart a cruise port as well. Number 16, interior facing balcony cabins. Now, I know some people are going to like these cabins, so if you like them, let me know in the comments below. But I did have a boardwalk balcony cabin on the Oasis of the Seas, and honestly, I did not love it. The reason I didn't love it was, first of all, because of the lack of privacy, and I knew that before I booked it, so in fairness, but there really is a lack of privacy. You just have your neighbors right next to you, you have people across that you could see and wave to. It really is quite close. And at the same time, I just missed being out on a balcony and actually being able to relax and see the sea. Instead, there's always a bit of a hustle and bustle. So I personally didn't love that. So in my opinion, I think these are cabins to avoid. Number 17. Now this one surprises a lot of people, but it is any cabins that are free cabin upgrades. Now the reason that I say this is that if you have taken the time to pick the cabin that you really want in the location that you really want, are you going to be happy with the free upgrade that is given by the cruise line? Now, you might be happy. However, it may be that your new cabin is now in a location that you don't really like. And sometimes you may not be bumped up from an ocean view to a balcony cabin. You may just simply go up a category within the ocean view, or you may not be bumped up from a balcony to a mini suite. You may just be bumped up to another location. Maybe you're going to be on a higher deck that's considered a higher category, but to you is not a better location. And once they upgrade you, it is very hard, if not impossible, to get your original cabin back. Now, I have even more cabin tips that you're going to want to know in this video right here, and it includes over 30 space-saving cruise cabin hacks that every cruiser needs to know. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know, what are the cabins that you think people should avoid? Are any of these cabins that you like? There's no right or wrong answer, but leave me your comments below. And if you did like this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.